Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie Esther here, and I thought I'd just go over this gamer interview that Matthew Cote and Jean Escalante, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Jean, did with the gamer website. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's a pretty short read, so we're just going to go through it and see what they had to say. It's always nice to touch base with the devs and see, you know, what makes them tick and things like that. So we just go through this real quick here. Shouldn't be too long. It's actually they broke this up into two parts, but they're pretty short. So let's see what we got here. Dead by Daylight interview. I feel a ridiculous amount of pride. Dead by Daylight is an anomaly. While it's less surprising that new live service games often fail to retain players past the first few months after launch, many older titles are also feeling the pinch. This isn't a concern for the asymmetrical horror multiplayer game from Studio Behavior Interactive, though, which is receiving a new iteration of its successful 2v8 mode, this time based on Resident Evil, and looking forward to a bright future in 2025. One of the reasons why Dead by Daylight worked as a game is because we didn't release it thinking it was going to be a game as a service, game director Matthew Cote explains. We released the game because we thought it was really cool and people would want to play it a couple of times. We were very surprised. We hoped it was going to be a success, but our plan was to release this game and to move on to something else, and that was it. Almost 9 years later, Dead by Daylight has more than 40,000 regular players on Steam, not counting those on Xbox and PlayStation. Hey, what about the Switch people? Rude. With over 30 chapters of DLCs throughout the years, dozens of new survivors and killers from different horror franchises have made an appearance, such as Dracula from Castlevania, Ghostface from Scream, not really from Scream though, right? The Xenomorph from Alien, and Nicolas Cage himself from, you know, Real Life, among many other familiar faces. All these new characters, modes, and other types of additional content have been an endless job for a team that started with 30 people and increased to 350. The development never stops, and they release something new every couple of months. Dead by Daylight is a great metaphor for what we do, he explains. No matter what happens, you're always back at the campfire for another day. First as a fan, then as a developer. This gives some insight into Jean, which I didn't know this about him, so I appreciated this part of it. While Cote was there from the beginning, senior advisor Jean Escalante joined the team in 2020. He started as a fan who first played DBD during its closed beta before its launch in 2016. Before sitting down to play, Escalante didn't get the game's appeal at first sight, but he tried it anyway because his group of friends was interested in it. After playing some matches, the group jumped into other things, and he just kept playing. Escalante even met Matthew Cote at TwitchCon in 2017, where the director gave him some Steam codes for cosmetics in the game. That's actually pretty cool. In 2025, Escalante and his team are preparing for the third iteration of the acclaimed 2v8 mode. I think Jean is in charge of events. I could be wrong about that, but I think he is. It will be Resident Evil themed with Wesker, called the Mastermind in-game, Nemesis, and the DBD's own The Legion added to the killer roster. The police department of Raccoon City will be featured as the main scenario, and there will be the classic green and yellow herbs from the Resident Evil series for survivors to heal themselves and killers to steal them. This limited time mode is only the beginning of DBD's 2025 plans. While the team never really considers making them permanent additions, Cote recognizes the success that every unique mode, such as Chaos Shuffle and Lights Out, receives from fans. He plays with the idea of permanently giving the players the chance to select the core game or an alternative mode from the main menu. Cote doesn't think this will be integrated, but he enjoys the idea of having these other ways of playing in the rotation. I'm really excited for what this 9th anniversary looks like, says Escalante, for hopefully many more years, because I don't think Dead by Daylight is going anywhere. If anything, it's just going to keep getting better and bigger. There's always other ideas for game modes and modifiers in our minds, but we know that people love their horror franchises. Getting your players hooked is a miracle. However, Escalante doesn't take his success for granted. He reflects on a rising trend in the industry of players sticking to the same old games without jumping into new ones. That's why he thinks it's so difficult to establish a new live service game today or maintain a successful one. This is also a reason why Behavior Interactive might have other projects in store, but a potential Dead by Daylight sequel is not one of them. They prefer to keep bringing new characters, perks, and modes for as long as possible. Cote also feels appreciation for the fans and the series' success. When reflecting on the 9 years of Dead by Daylight, he feels a ridiculous amount of pride. I actually heard that in Matthew's voice. I'm just grateful to have been a part of that, he explains. You can work in the industry for 50 years, and you're lucky if you get one of these projects. It very rarely happens. It was sort of a perfect storm. It was a good time for us to come up with something, and we were lucky enough that we released something great, but it was released at the right time, and people actually noticed it. Cote recognizes the challenges that games as a service bring to the table, and he believes that one key is to know how to treat the people near you, not just in terms of free time or day-to-day basis, but also in how they feel about the work. The game is fictional, but it's nonetheless composed of disturbing imagery and violence. Sometimes people just had enough, Cote says. There are other projects in the company. We can make you work on something else. I know that some people get off and they love it and the horror and everything, but some others are like, you know what? I'm a character artist and I've been looking at mutilated, brutally hurt people for the last 5 years. I need to make fairies and pretty butterflies, please. Now I want Stephen King in Dead by Daylight. Like Stephen King properties or the actual Stephen King? When discussing the distant future of Dead by Daylight and what they would like to see, Escalante mentions the doll from the film M3GAN as a killer. Pretty timely since they just put out the teaser trailer for M3GAN, the sequel, right? And something related to the paranormal, like a haunted house, which they haven't explored yet. Cote, on the other hand, would love to have Stephen King as a playable character, but he thinks it's impossible because the author has publicly shared his hate towards video games. Who knows what will happen in the future of the series? Maybe they'll surprise us with a model of Stephen King himself for its 10th anniversary. In the meantime, the team at Behavior Interactive doesn't seem to think about stopping anytime soon. Stephen King as a survivor. That's actually an interesting idea. I don't know. I don't know. He just doesn't seem like he has. When I made the video about Warner Brothers doubling down on doing collabs with other video games now that Multiversus is shut down, many of you said, Paulie, you didn't talk about Stephen King stuff at all. And I kept that aside because I don't think Warner has the power to do that on their own, and they need Stephen King. And Stephen King just doesn't seem interested in doing video games at all. And they even link this article here, which is the famous one where he talks about how his kids beat him at Pitfall, and he's not a video game guy. But I still don't understand this. Like, this makes no sense to me because his kids like video games, obviously, or liked them, right? And his son, if you don't know, is Joe Hill, who is the writer of The Black Phone, which is having a sequel to that movie come up as well. And Joe, seems to have a different opinion about video games. He says here, video games are art, discussion settled. So what's the greatest video game art? So he believes that video games are definitely an art form, but he also says that basically video games will never have the impact of thoughtful, fully fleshed out books or movies because games are different. But I don't think that means that he dismisses the genre as a whole. He seems like he has more of a place in his heart for video games than perhaps his father does. But I don't know, why wouldn't Joe just say, come on, Dad, people love this stuff, let them have your characters in video games? Why Stephen King seems so standoffish about the idea of having his characters in video games just is very perplexing to me. Because basically this article is about he doesn't think that people should be banned from video games and, free speech kind of a thing. Let people do what they want, a liberty aspect. So why wouldn't he allow his characters to go into video games and then let them choose if they want to play video games that have his characters in them. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. It's not like he's saving the world by keeping his characters out of video games and make them all read books. I don't get it. But this is the prevailing theory about why Stephen King isn't interested in video games, because he's not a fan. I don't know. You have to be a fan of something to let your character be in it. I don't know. I guess but the buck stops with him, and it seems like he has stopped the buck. So nope, video games are not my thing. Anyway, okay, so that's part 1 of the article. And then they went on to do this part 2 that talked about what they want, what they prefer to have in the game. The Dead by Daylight devs want Stephen King and M3GAN in the game. All right, let's read through this. Behavior has expressed interest in bringing Stephen King himself to the game as a survivor. Really? Really? It even joked about the possible Mario Kart mode featuring Christine, the possessed car. Dead by Daylight is a smorgasbord of horror icons from Michael Myers to Ghostface and the Xenomorph. But Behavior Interactive recently brought Nicolas Cage into the fold himself, setting a new precedent. Real people are fair game. So who better than the horror legend Stephen King to join him? I'll say Stephen King just because I know it's probably not going to happen, game director and head of partnerships Matthew Cote told The Gamer when asked what horror franchise he'd like to work with in the future. I'm a huge fan. Dave Richard, our creative director, is also a huge fan. We spent a lot of time talking about Stephen King. I have heard them in various forums talk about how they're both huge Stephen King fans. I would love to get Stephen King himself in the game. That's pretty ambitious. That's an interesting idea. And he said in interviews and many other places that he does not like adaptations in general, and he specifically hates video games. So it's probably never going to happen. I would love to get Stephen King himself in our game because he's written himself in many of his stories as a character. This is true. So I think it would fit right next to Nicolas Cage. I would be on board with that. Behavior Interactive has toyed with making a Mario Kart crossover style game with Dead by Daylight starring Christine. As for what Stephen King character they'd like to bring into the game, don't expect anyone as obvious as Pennywise or Jack Torrance. Bizarrely, senior game director John Escalante would choose Christine, the possessed 1958 Plymouth Fury. We've joked a lot about making Dead by Daylight Kart, Escalante said, like Mario Kart, but with DBD. And then somehow, sometimes it revolves around Christine, the car from Stephen King. We just joke about how funny it would be to have a car looking out for you in DBD. I don't know how that would work with putting you on a hook and whatnot, but your imagination can take you to a whole lot of funny places with that. The Dead by Daylight devs also want M3GAN as a killer. Christine might seem far-fetched, but then again, so did Chucky at one point. The possessed child's play doll was long thought to be far too small to work as a killer in a game like DBD, but Behavior found a way to make it work in 2023. And the reign of the killer children's toys isn't over just yet. Not only is there a Five Nights at Freddy's crossover underway, Escalante also wants to see M3GAN join the game's killer roster. I've never seen the movie, so it's silly that I bring it up, but I really want to see M3GAN in DBD, Escalante told The Gamer. One day, we could see M3GAN lifting Stephen King onto a hook and skewering his back before everyone takes a quick timeout for some Mario Kart. Alan Wake swerving on a banana, Leon Kennedy crashing into last place, all while Christine ominously lingers still, ready to be let loose. Oh, that's it. All right. Interesting. See, I told you it wasn't too long. Huh. Well, so I did have a theory at one point of why I thought they were hinting to us that M3GAN would be coming to DBD. I'd have to dust off that old tinfoil hat one day and publish that video about the crazy theory about the evidence that M3GAN is coming to DBD. But when they're talking about this, then these are probably the things that are least likely to happen, or that's what they want you to think. It's a double bluff. If they talk about it and say it's never going to happen, then it's going to happen. I mean, I could actually genuinely see Matthew Cote saying, like, it'll never happen, and then it happens. But probably it's not going to happen. But it's fun to think about, and it's a nice interview here. Anyway, I just thought that that was interesting, and I thought you might find it interesting too, so I wanted to share that with you. But that's all I have to show you today. Let me know what you think about all that. As always, appreciate the time you spend here with me on my channel. Don't forget to like, comment about what you've seen here, and subscribe, as it helps the channel a ton. And don't forget to take care of each other in and out of the fog. We'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
It's a Gen Rush life for us. It's a Gen Rush life for us. Set a hiding, we do gens. Set a randoms, we got friends. It's a Gen Rush life.